I never thought I'd be the kind of person who talks to ghosts. Not the kind that flit about in a translucent haze, mind you, but the kind you'd find in old horror movies or those late-night radio shows your grandmother swears by. But here I am, Jack Marley, proud owner of the Marley Inn, a bed and breakfast that's seen better days and better centuries, if you listen closely enough. The Marley Inn stands like a stubborn relic on the edge of the village. Its paint peeling like sunburned skin and its porch sagging under the weight of too many rainy seasons. It's not the kind of place you'd expect to find ghosts, but then again, I'm not exactly your typical innkeeper either. I inherited this place from my parents, who loved it despite its creaky floorboards, drafty rooms, and, yes, the ghostly inhabitants who've been part of the family for longer than I've been alive. I like to think of them as my spectral roommates. Take Eleanor, for example. She's the lead poltergeist around here, a mischievous spirit who fancies herself the inn's unofficial manager. You'd think having a ghost causing harmless chaos would be a nightmare, but Eleanor's antics have a certain charm. She's fiercely loyal to this place, like she's guarding a treasure no one else can see. Of course, not everyone shares my fondness for the supernatural. The villagers tend to look at me as if I've lost my marbles whenever I mention the ghosts. I can't say I blame them who'd believe a guy trying to save a crumbling inn by turning it into a ghost tour attraction. It sounds mad, even to me, but desperate times call for desperate measures. The Marley Inn teeters on the brink of financial ruin, bills piling up like the dust on the antique furniture. I've tried everything: flyers, discounts, even a few online ads that barely got a click, but nothing sticks. And then one evening, as I sat in the dimly lit lounge nursing a lukewarm cup of tea, Alina floated down from the ceiling and knocked over a vase. Instead of frustration, an idea sparked in my head. Why not embrace the ghosts? Turn this so-called curse into a business. Ghost-themed tours, haunted overnight stays, spooky storytelling sessions by the fireplace, the works. It's unconventional, sure. Risky even. But it just might be crazy enough to work. I practiced my pitch in front of the cracked mirror, trying to sound confident. The Marley Inn, where history and hauntings come alive, I muttered, imagining a crowd of tourists eager to pay for a brush with the supernatural. The truth was, I wasn't sure if the locals would bite, nor if the ghosts would cooperate. The next day, I found myself at the village pub, clutching a worn notebook filled with plans and half-baked slogans. The regulars were easy enough to spot: grizzled faces, skeptical eyes, and a general air of "we've heard it all before." I cleared my throat and launched into my pitch, trying to keep the nervous tremble out of my voice. "Look, I know the Marley Inn has a reputation," I began, "but what if we turned that reputation into something fun? A haunted experience unlike any other. You get to see, hear, and maybe even meet the ghosts ourselves." I glanced at the corner of the room, where a pint glass wobbled inexplicably, spilling a bead of beer onto the floor. Eleanor was already at work. A few chuckles, some raised eyebrows, and a lot of silence followed. One old-timer shook his head. "Jack, you're chasing shadows. Folks want comfort, not ghost stories." Another piped up, "Sounds like a circus act to me." I knew it wouldn't be easy. Turning a failing inn into a ghostly hotspot would be an uphill battle. And I'd have to convince not just the townsfolk, but also Eleanor and her spectral crew that this was a good idea. They weren't exactly on board at first, their pranks growing more frequent and elaborate as if testing my resolve. Back at the inn, I sat alone in the lounge as twilight deepened, the house creaking and sighing around me. Eleanor appeared, a soft glow in the dimness, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "You want to make this place famous, Jack?" she asked, her voice like the tinkling of wind chimes. "Fine, but you'll have to keep up." I grinned despite the knot of worry tightening in my stomach. "Challenge accepted," I said. So begins the story of the Marley in a place where laughter echoes with the footsteps of ghosts, and hope flickers like a candle in the dark. It's going to be a wild ride, full of chaos and charm, and maybe, just maybe, a chance to save this old house and the memories it holds. Because sometimes, the best way to face your fears is to invite them over for a cup of tea and a good joke. And with that, the Marleyans' new chapter was about to begin. The day dawned, or rather, dawned in some nebulous, space-time warped sense aboard the Celestial Spoon. The grandest space cruise ship ever to host not just the wealthy and the whimsical, but the galaxy's most eclectic and eccentric culinary minds. And there I was, Alex Quibble, scruffy hair and all, clutching a half-stale bread roll and wondering if I'd accidentally signed up for a cooking contest or a hostage negotiation. The ship's main hall was a spectacle of alien architecture and culinary chaos, a place where gravity seemed optional and the air was filled with the mingled scents of spices that no human nose was supposed to handle without protest. The ceiling glittered with holographic stars swirling in endless orbits, casting prismatic light over the gathered chefs, each a walking advertisement for chaos with their tentacles, feathers, scales, and other appendages all flashing in a riot of colors and textures. I shuffled forward, trying to look important while internally scrambling to remember if I'd locked my apartment back on Earth. Beside me, the metallic clanking and occasional sparks of Jix, the robotic kitchen assistant, punctuated the symphony of alien chatter and sizzling pans. Jix, bless its circuit board heart, was already providing a masterclass in how not to assist a cook. An overenthusiastic arm flung a mixing bowl clear across the room, eliciting a few startled yelps and one very annoyed Glorbian chef whose 3 eyes narrowed in suspicion. Then, as if summoned by the collective tension in the room, a shadow fell over the crowd. Chef Vrax Thorne entered with the kind of presence that made you question if the light had dimmed, or if your heart had just skipped a beat in sheer terror. Tall, imposing, and cloaked in a metallic apron that caught the light like a blade, Vrax's piercing eyes swept the room with the precision of a laser scalpel. Rumors of his ruthless sabotage tactics had preceded him, and suddenly, my hope for a friendly contest felt about as solid as a soffle in zero gravity. I tried to swallow the lump forming in my throat and reminded myself of one thing. I'd survived worse kitchen disasters back home. Like that time I nearly set a whole diner on fire because I thought flam meant flaming everything. Just as I was about to retreat into the comforting embrace of my chaotic thoughts, a voice chirped beside me. "Alex."
"There you are!"
Mira Zinn bounded up, her electric blue hair practically glowing under the hall's shifting lights. She was everything I wasn't: confident, resourceful, and armed with a utility belt bristling with spices and gadgets I couldn't pronounce. Mira's smile was a beacon, cutting through my panic like a hot knife through butter. "I brought reinforcements," she said, patting Jix's metallic shoulder, which promptly emitted a series of nervous beeps and started spinning its arms in what could only be described as a mechanical nervous tick. "Great," I muttered. "Reinforcements that throw knives and bowls." Jix immediately demonstrated by accidentally sending a ladle flying into a nearby tray of pickled nebula squids, which exploded in a shower of iridescent juice. The hall erupted into a mixture of laughter and groans. As the introductions began, I found myself surrounded by a dazzling array of competitors, a tentacled chef who insisted on cooking blindfolded, a gelatinous being who flavored dishes by changing color, and a tiny insectoid with more arms than I had fingers, all wielding knives with terrifying dexterity. I could barely keep up with the introductions, much less the alien culinary jargon flying around like confetti. Then there was Vrax, who made it clear with a single, icy glance that I was the joke of the contest. "You little earthling," he said, voice smooth but sharp, "don't belong here." I forced a smile, reminding myself that even the most fearsome dragons could be outflamed with a little creativity and the occasional dash of luck. Mira gave me a reassuring nod, and Jix beeped in what I hoped was solidarity, though it was probably a warning signal. The day unfolded with a dizzying tour of the ship's culinary facilities, each more bizarre than the last. There was the zero-gravity bake zone where dough floated like cosmic clouds, the molecular gastronomy chamber that resembled a mad scientist's lab, and the alien ingredient vault filled with things that looked like they could either be snacks or sentient life forms. I trailed behind Mira as she expertly navigated the madness, pointing out spices that smelled like laughter and fruits that hummed when sliced. By the time the tour ended, I was both exhilarated and exhausted. My head was buzzing with strange new flavors, rivalries already simmering to a boil, and the weight of impending disaster or triumph pressing down like a souffle left too long in the oven. As we settled into our assigned kitchen stations, Jix decided it was the perfect moment to demonstrate its juggling skills, tossing eggs, knives, and a suspiciously large alien pepper grinder into the air with disastrous results. Mira just shook her head, and I laughed despite myself, realizing that if this was the chaos I had to face, then I was going to need every ounce of my quick wit and clumsy charm to survive. The contest had officially begun, and I was smack dab in the middle of a cosmic cooking storm. But with Mira by my side and Jix occasionally not destroying everything, maybe, just maybe, I stood a chance. Or at least, I could make a spectacular mess trying. The opening bell of the galaxy's most prestigious cooking contest echoed through the gleaming halls of the Celestial Spoon, a sound that was supposed to signal the start of something grand but, in my case, might as well have been the starting gun in a slapstick race to disaster. I, Alex Quibble, standing amid an array of odd, otherworldly ingredients that looked like they belonged more in a sci-fi horror flick than a kitchen, was already struggling to keep my balance and my dignity. "All right, team," Mira Zin chirped, her vibrant blue hair bobbing as she inspected a cluster of luminescent pods that pulsed gently like tiny heartbeats. "First challenge, create a dish using at least 3 of these alien ingredients. Easy, right? Easy." I could barely figure out which one was edible and which might spontaneously combust. My fingers fumbled with a squishy, glowing fruit that oozed a strange, sticky sap. It smelled faintly of burnt rubber and, if I'm honest, a hint of despair. "Myra, are you sure this is food?" I whispered, trying not to attract the attention of the other chefs, or the notoriously harsh Judge Zila, whose gaze already felt like it could incinerate a souffle from across the room. "In this contest, Alex, everything is food," she said with a grin that was both reassuring and terrifying. Jix, our robotic kitchen assistant, whirred and clicked nearby, its lights flickering erratically. For all its cutting-edge design, it had a tendency to malfunction at the worst moments, and today was no exception. As I precariously balanced a bowl of pulsating alien vegetables, Jix's arm jerked wildly, knocking over a container filled with shimmering, powdery spices.
No, no, no!
I muttered, diving to catch the cascading ingredients, but it was too late. The spices exploded in a cloud of glittering dust that settled on everything, including my apron, which was now a kaleidoscope of colors and textures that would have made a modern art curator weep with envy or confusion. Chaos was just getting started. I turned back to my stove, where a small blue flame suddenly flared up, licking the edges of my pan with alarming enthusiasm. "Mira," I called, trying to sound calm but failing as the flame grew into a small burst that set a nearby towel on fire.
Fire!
Mira shouted, grabbing a nearby extinguisher and dousing the flames, sending a plume of smoke curling toward the ceiling vents.
Jix!
I barked, but the robot was too busy spinning in circles, its sensors clearly overwhelmed by the sensory overload. From across the kitchen, a cold voice cut through the pandemonium. "Amateur hour," sneered Chef Vrax Thorne, standing tall and imposing with their metallic apron glinting under the sterile lights. Their piercing eyes flicked over my disaster zone with a mixture of disdain and amusement. "Let me know when you're ready to actually cook." I clenched my fists, resisting the urge to retort with something clever, and instead focused on salvaging what I could. Somehow, through a haphazard blend of desperation and last-minute improvisation, I tossed the alien fruit, the shimmering vegetables, and the scattered spices into a pan, stirring furiously. Mira looked on, eyebrows raised but supportive. "That's actually not terrible," she said cautiously. The timer buzzed, signaling the end of the round. Sweaty and exhausted, I plated my creation, a slightly charred, wildly aromatic fusion dish that smelled like a cosmic carnival and tasted like a happy accident. Judge Zyla approached, her expression unreadable as she sampled the dish. The room held its breath. For a moment, I thought she might spit it out in disgust, but then a rare smile cracked her stern facade. "Intriguing," she said softly, eyes glinting with something close to approval. Gasps rippled through the room. Even Vrax's smirk faltered for a second. "Looks like luck, skill, or sheer madness might have a place in this contest after all," Mira whispered. I allowed myself a brief, victorious grin before the next round's chaos beckoned. If this was the start, I was going to need all the frantic hope and exasperated delight I could muster to survive what was coming next. And somehow I had a feeling the fire was only just beginning. The kitchen was humming with the usual frenetic energy when the first spark caught fire. At least, that's what it sounded like in my head before the actual fire alarm screamed its shrill warning and the smoke began to curl aggressively from the corner of my workstation. I was mid-chop on a rather suspiciously slippery alien root, one that Mira insisted was delicious, but which I suspected was out to get me, when a sudden whoosh and a burst of flames licked up from the nearby spice rack.
Fire! Fire!
I yelled, waving my arms like a mad conductor trying to orchestrate an escape symphony. Mira was faster, of course, already diving toward the fire suppressants with blue hair flying behind her like a comet tail.
"Alex, grab the extinguisher!"
she commanded, eyes sharp and unyielding despite the chaos. Jix, our robotic kitchen assistant, decided this was the perfect moment to glitch spectacularly. Its arms spun wildly, knocking over a container of alien flour that puffed out in a cloud of white dust, which somehow made the fire look even more dramatic. The poor machine beeped in distress, its lights flickering erratically as if it were having a tiny existential crisis.
"Jix!
"Stop that!" I barked, dodging a flailing mechanical limb that narrowly missed my head. It beeped mournfully, but finally ceased the panicked flailing and started to help, directing a stream of cooling mist toward the fire with unnerving precision. Meanwhile, across the kitchen, Chef Vraxthorn stood statuesque and unruffled, their piercing eyes gleaming with satisfaction as the room descended into pandemonium. I caught the faintest smirk flicker beneath the sharp metallic apron that gleamed under the harsh kitchen lights. They were clearly the architect of this fiery mess, and the thought made my stomach twist, not from fear, exactly, but from a mixture of indignation and a wild, desperate urge to prove I wasn't going to be burned out of this contest so easily. "Mira, we need to get this under control before the judges come running," I choked out, trying to sound calm despite the smoke making my throat itch terribly. "And Jix, please try not to explode again." Mira shot me a grin, her fingers deftly pulling spices and tools from her utility belt as she worked. "You worry too much, Alex. We got this." The fire suppressants hissed and spat, steam rising as flames hissed their retreat. The kitchen was a battlefield now, with every contestant either rushing to help or stepping back warily, eyes flicking between the blaze and each other. Rivalries simmered hotter than the fire itself, but in this moment, survival and teamwork edged out petty grudges. I coughed, waving smoke away from my eyes, and glanced at the wreckage of my cooking station. Ingredients were scattered, some charred, others slick with spilled sauces. "Well," I muttered, "that's one way to clear the workspace." Mira laughed, a bright sound that cut through the tension. "And one hell of a way to get everyone's attention." Chef Vrax's shadow loomed over the edge of the chaos, their expression unreadable but clearly pleased with the disruption. Yet beneath that cold exterior, I sensed something else, a flicker of something more fragile, buried beneath layers of ruthlessness. As the last tendrils of smoke curled upward and the alarms finally died, the kitchen's frenetic energy began to settle. We exchanged wary glances, competitors who had fought fiercely in the past moments, now silently acknowledging each other's resilience. It was a fragile truce born from shared disaster. "You okay?" Mira asked, clapping a hand on my shoulder. I nodded, though my apron was a mess and my nerves were frayed. As okay as one can be when the galaxy's deadliest chef tries to torch your career. She grinned. "We'll show them that chaos can be a recipe for success." And with that, amidst the smoldering remains of what had been my cooking station, I felt an odd surge of determination. If this contest was going to be a battle of wits, sabotage and smoke-filled kitchens, then I was ready to fight with every last clumsy, chaotic breath I had. The contest wasn't just about cooking anymore. It was about survival and maybe, just maybe, about proving that even the most hapless cook could rise from the ashes. But as I looked toward Chef Vrax's cold gaze, I knew this fire was far from the last spark of sabotage. The real inferno was only beginning. And I was standing right in the middle of it. I never intended to become a secret scholar of the culinary arts. Honestly, when I signed up for the galaxy's grandest cooking contest aboard the Celestial Spoon, my primary ambition was to not set the kitchen on fire twice in one day. But here I was, crouched in a shadowy nook of the ship's sprawling library, nervously fiddling with the holobook projector as it flickered uncertainly, casting an eerie blue glow over the yellowing pages of forbidden recipes. The holobooks were supposed to be off-limits relics of ancient culinary wisdom, banned by contest regulations and, more importantly, by Chef Vrax Thorne's iron grip on tradition. The idea was to level the playing field, or so the official rules claimed. But let's face it, with my bumbling skills, I needed every advantage I could sneakily pry from the stars. I glanced over my shoulder, heart hammering at the faintest echo of footsteps. Chef Vrax was notorious for surprise inspections, and their metallic apron was said to glint like a blade in low light. Not that I'd ever seen it up close without wanting to hide behind a vat of boiling broth. The holobook hummed softly, its pages turning with a mechanical whisper. The recipe I was studying promised techniques to coax flavors from ingredients that seemed, frankly, like they belonged in a science fiction horror movie. I scribbled frantic notes, mumbling to myself, if I can just get the timing right on the xylovine reduction, maybe I won't look like a complete disaster. Meanwhile, in another part of the ship, Mira Zinn was on a mission of her own. I'd caught her slipping away from the chaotic hubbub of the kitchen, her vibrant blue hair tucked under a hood as she navigated the labyrinthine corridors leading to the spice vault, a place I had heard whispers of but never dared to explore. The vault was legendary, a cavernous chamber lined with shelves, stocked full of glowing jars and shimmering powders from every corner of the galaxy. Mira returned hours later, her eyes alight with triumph, clutching a small vial filled with a swirling iridescent powder. "Alex," she whispered conspiratorially, "this is it. The rare zircon spice. It's said to bring out flavors no one's ever tasted before." Before I could respond, a sudden commotion erupted near the prep stations. Jix, our malfunctioning robotic kitchen assistant, had decided that now was the perfect time for a performance. With a series of whirs and sparks, it sent a fountain of glowing alien spices cascading into the air, painting the room with bursts of color and pungent smells that turned heads and noses alike. "Jix," Mira groaned, diving to catch the mess before the judges noticed. I scrambled after her, slipping on spilled nebulous salt and nearly knocking over a vat of simmering plasma broth. The kitchen was a maelstrom of frantic energy, part disaster, part comedy, and somehow, in that chaos, I felt alive. But looming over every moment was the shadow of Chef Vrax Thorne. Their piercing eyes seemed to dissect my every move, their disdainful sneer a constant reminder of the gulf between us. I could almost hear their metallic apron clinking ominously as they prowled the kitchen, a predator guarding their territory. Despite the fear, despite the chaos, something inside me shifted. Maybe it was Mira's unwavering faith, or the thrill of discovery, or just the stubborn refusal to be the joke everyone expected me to be. Whatever it was, I knew one thing for certain: the contest was far from over, and my secret weapons were about to change the game. As I tucked the holobook away and wiped the sweat from my brow, I prepared myself for whatever madness the celestial spoon had in store next. Because if there was one lesson this place taught, it was that in a universe full of chaos and rivalry, the right spice and a little secret knowledge might just be the difference between spectacular failure and unexpected triumph. And with Mira by my side, I was ready to face the fire. "You were really going to hide those holobooks?" Mira asked later that evening, her eyes twinkling with mischief as she helped me stow the forbidden knowledge in a hollow compartment beneath my cooking station. "Stealth is the only way," I whispered back, glancing nervously toward the judge's quarters. "Besides, if Chef Vrax finds out, I'm toast, and not the good kind." She laughed, a bright, infectious sound that cut through the tension like a knife through butter. "Well, just don't blow yourself up trying to be clever." I grinned despite the nerves, no promises. Just then a soft chime echoed through the kitchen. The contest was far from over, and the next round would test every ounce of my newfound knowledge and every pinch of Mira's secret spice. Game on. The kitchen was alive with its usual cacophony, sizzling pans, the rhythmic chopping of alien vegetables, and the low hum of the celestial spoon's culinary engines. Yet, amidst this familiar bedlam, a new presence loomed, a hulking figure, whose every step seemed to reverberate through the metal floor. Grut the Grumbler, as I had come to know him, was a mountain of a chef, his rough, scaly skin almost camouflaging with the industrial grays and blues of the galley. His scowl was permanent, a living frown that seemed etched into his very being. I was nervously arranging my mismatched utensils when he appeared beside me, arms crossed and eyes sharp with appraisal. "You're the new disaster in the kitchen," he rumbled, voice like gravel sliding down a chute. "This ain't no place for amateurs." I swallowed hard, my usual sarcastic retort caught somewhere between my teeth and the overwhelming presence he radiated. Mira, ever my shield and confidant, stepped forward with a cheery smile, her blue hair a vibrant streak against the metallic backdrop. "We were learning," she said brightly, tossing a handful of shimmering blue spice into my bubbling pot. The scent was intoxicating, peppery with a hint of something sweet and otherworldly. Even Grut's scowl twitched, if only slightly. "Hemph," he grunted, turning his gaze back to my concoction. "You've got spirit, but spirit don't make a meal." His critique was brutal, dissecting my every move with surgical precision. "You chop like you re-swatting flies and season like you re-afraid of flavor." I wanted to protest, to explain that I was improvising under pressure, but his words, though harsh, contained a kernel of truth. My hands trembled slightly as I tried to steady myself. Just then, Jix, our malfunctioning robotic assistant, decided to add to the chaos. With a series of beeps and twitches, it flung a glob of glowing sauce across the floor, narrowly missing Grut's massive boot. The alien chef's scowl faltered, replaced by a rare and grudging chuckle. "Bloody machine," he muttered, shaking his head but clearly entertained. Encouraged by this small crack in his armor, I pressed on, determined to prove I wasn't just a walking disaster. "Any advice for someone who's this far out of their depth?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Grut's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. "Don't cook to please the crowd or the judges. Cook to survive. Use what you got, not what you wish you had. And don't be afraid to get your hands dirty." He leaned in closer, voice dropping to a gravelly whisper. "I wasn't always the grumbler you see now. Exiled from my guild, stripped of honor. This contest, it's my chance to claw back what I lost." His confession hung heavy in the air, a poignant contrast to his intimidating exterior. For the first time, I saw beyond the gruffness to the vulnerable soul beneath. Maybe our rivalry wasn't just about cooking. Maybe it was about redemption and survival. As the session ended, Grut gave me a nod, a small but significant gesture of respect. "Keep your chaos, Quibble, but learn to wield it. With that, he turned and disappeared into the labyrinth of the Celestial Spoon's galley. I exhaled deeply, Mira clapping me on the shoulder. See, even Grut's got a soft side. I wasn't so sure, but I knew one thing for certain. This contest was going to be a lot more complicated than I ever imagined. And if I was going to survive, I'd have to learn from the grumbler's grumble, whether I liked it or not. Little did I know, this uneasy alliance would soon be tested in ways that would push both of us to the brink culinarily and personally. But that was a story for another chaotic day aboard the Celestial Spoon.